life and times of Major General Sir Nevill Smyth. Welcome to the fascinating history of the Smyth family. We have been able to trace Sir Neville's family back to 1650. The first couple in the family lineage were Benjamin, born 1650, death unknown, and Abigail Ingalls, birth unknown, death 1686. Benjamin and Abigail had a son, called Benjamin, on the 2nd of September 1675 at Great Waltham, Essex, England. Benjamin the son married Dolores Palmer Wallace. Benjamin and Dolores moved to America pre-1700. They also had a son they called Benjamin. He was born about 1700 in Walpack Township, Sussex, New Jersey, America. Benjamin, husband of Dolores, died at Knowlton, Warren, New Jersey in 1720. Young Benjamin Smyth became a prominent New Jersey farmer, miller and sawmill owner, first at Walpack and later at Knowlton, now called Warren. About 1725 he married Katharina Hendricks Schoonhoven, and they had 8 children. They were Benjamin, 1726, Dolvis, Abraham, 1728, John, 1729, Henry, 1727, Joseph, 1737, then his 2 daughters Catherine, 1742, and Nancy, 1739. She was also known as Mary Ann. At Walpack, he served as town clerk in 1735, and again from 1746 to 1748. In 1749 he was overseer of roads, in 1754 member of a committee established by an Act of the Assembly to divide the county into precincts, and in 1755 a grand juror. In the late 1750s he moved to Knowlton, and by 1760 had built a grist mill where the inhabitants of Paraquarry, now part of Hardwick, brought their grain on pack horses to be ground into flour. The area became known as Smyth's Mills, since renamed Blairstown. Benjamin Smyth is the earliest namesake of Blairstown, when the village was called Smyth's Mills circa 1755 to 1795. Mr. Smyth had worked for prominent millers of the time including Caspar Schaefer of Stillwater. Sometime about 1750 he became the operator of his own grist mill and sawmill. Mr. Smyth was a frontiersman and family man who was devoted to his religious beliefs. He was also a civic leader, his name being one which can be found in the 1753 documents dividing Sussex County from Morris County. In addition, he held the title of freeholder. Katharina died in 1750. He later married Dorothy Brewer. Benjamin died in July 1769. His will made on the 14th of July 1769 was proved on the 7th of August 1769 by his youngest son Joseph Smyth. Benjamin Smyth's 1769 grave is the earliest marker in what is now called the Gravel Hill Cemetery, also known as the Blairstown Cemetery, and his grave is also the earliest to be found in the surrounding cemeteries in Blairstown Township. Still following Nevill Smyth's paternal line, we note that his great-grandfather was Joseph Brewer Palmer Smyth. Joseph, who was born about 1737 in New Jersey, USA, and he was the 6th son of Benjamin Smyth and Katharina Hendricks Schoonhoven. Joseph was an American loyalist from New Jersey who served as a lieutenant in the King's Royal Regiment of New York during the Revolutionary War. When the American Revolutionary War reached New Jersey, he escaped to the British-held fort at Niagara and was commissioned as a lieutenant in the King's Royal Johnston's Regiment of New York. In November 1778, he was sailing from Quebec to New York when his vessel was captured by a rebel ship and he was taken prisoner. Eventually freed by a British ship, he was landed at Falmouth, Cornwall, in January 1779 in a most forlorn condition. About 1780, Joseph married Georgiana Caroline Pitt, Pilkington, Snow. Joseph Brewer Smyth had 3 children to Georgiana Caroline Pitt, Pilkington, Snow. There is no record of them having married. The records do show the 3 children. They were Joseph Adolphus Smyth, born the 13th of December 1780. Elizabeth and Smyth, no date available, and William Henry Smyth, the 21st of January 1788. Joseph Smyth sailed back to America in 1787 to reclaim his lands. Joseph died in Quebec, Canada sometime before July 1788. In a letter he wrote in August 1788 from Niagara, to his wife he said, "I hope Mr. Earl is well in health and desire my best respects to him." Smyth died shortly before returning to England, and Caroline was left with 3 children, Joseph Adolphus, Elizabeth, and William Henry. In 1789 James Earl married Georgiana Caroline Pilkington Smyth, the widow of Joseph Brewer Palmer Smyth. Both James Earl and the Smyths lived at 42 Great Peter Street. Georgiana Caroline died on 11 August 1838 in Marylebone. Nevill Maskelyne Smyth's grandfather William Henry Smyth. William was born on the 21st of January 1788 at 42 Great Peter Street, Westminster, London. William was the son of Joseph Smyth and Georgina Caroline Pitt Pilkington Smyth. At the age of 14 in 1802, William Smyth ran away to join the merchant marine. By 1804 he was in the East India Company's ship Marquis Cornwallis, which the government chartered for an expedition against the Seychelles. In the following March Cornwallis was brought into the Navy and established as a 50-gun ship under the command of Captain Charles James Johnston, with whom Smyth remained after seeing much active service in Indian, Chinese, and Australian waters. In February 1808 he followed Johnston to the Powerful, which, on returning to England, was part of the force in the expedition to the Scheldt, and was paid off in October 1809. Smyth afterwards served in the 74-gun Milford on the coast of France and Spain, and was lent from her to command the Spanish gunboat Mors Haute Gloria for several months at the defence of Cadiz, September 1810 to April 1811. In July 1811 he joined Rodney off Toulon, and through 1812 served on the coast of Spain. On the 25th of March 1813 he was promoted to the rank of lieutenant, and appointed for duty with the Sicilian flotilla, in which he combined service against the French from Naples with a good deal of unofficial hydrographic surveying and antiquarian research. For his services in defending Sicily, Smyth was subsequently awarded the Order of St. Ferdinand and of Merit by King Ferdinand I of the Two Sicilies, and received permission from the Prince Regent to wear it on the 16th of March 1816. On the 18th of September 1815 he was made commander, and without any appointment to command a ship he continued surveying the coast of Sicily, the adjacent coasts of Italy, and the opposite shores of Africa. William Smyth married Eliza and Annarella Warrington in Messina on the 7th of October 1815, when they were 27. Smyth and Annarella had 11 children between 1816 and 1835. Their 3 sons were Charles Piazzi Smyth, Warrington Wilkinson Smyth, and Henry Augustus Smyth. Of their 8 daughters, 2 died young, their firstborn, Elizabeth, aged 4, and fourth-born Elizabeth, and aged 2, a third, Jane Phoebe, married and died, aged 20, another, Josephine, also died at 20, unmarried, and another, Caroline Mary, at 25, of diphtheria, less than a month before her wedding day. Their other 3 daughters were Henrietta Grace, who married Reverend Professor Baden-Powell and was mother of 9, including Robert Baden-Powell, 1st Baron Baden-Powell, while Georgiana Rosetta married Sir William Henry Flower and had 7 children, and Ellen Philadelphia, who married Captain Henry Toynbee and sailed out to Australia as a bride in 1855. She died childless in 1881, aged 52, after a long illness. With his military commitments coming to an end with the fall of Napoleon, Smyth devoted himself to the survey of Sicily, in command of the brig Scylla, and he produced a number of maps and drawings that roused the Admiralty's unconditional admiration for their beauty and accuracy. He was subsequently engaged in hydrographic operations in the Adriatic. 1817, Smyth's survey work was put on a more formal footing by his appointment to aid, renamed in 1821 as Adventure. This ship was later to be accompanied by Beagle on the first voyage of the Beagle, 1826-30. Charles Darwin was on the second voyage, 1831-36, on which voyage Smyth's half-brother Augustus Earle was appointed ship's artist by naturalist Charles Darwin. In this capacity he acted as both a recorder of biological specimens and as topographical artist. In aid, Smyth carried on the hydrographic survey of the Italian, Sicilian, Greek, and African coasts, and constructed a very large number of charts, used by the British Royal Navy inter alia until the mid-20th century. As a result, he became known as Mediterranean Smyth. In 1817 he met the Italian astronomer Giuseppe Piazzi in Palermo, Sicily, and visited his observatory. This sparked his interest in astronomy. Smyth's first son was given Piazzi's surname as his middle name. On 7 February 1824, Smyth was promoted to post rank, and in the following November, aged 37, he paid off the Adventure. As a result of the inevitable cuts following the defeat of Napoleon, this was the end of Smyth's service at sea, his tastes then leading him to a life of literary and scientific industry. In 1846 Smyth accepted retirement from the Navy, receiving half pay of 18 shillings per day, though in due course he was advanced, on the retired list, to Rear Admiral, without increase of pay, on the 28th of May 1853, then to Vice Admiral on the 17th of May 1858, with seniority from the 13th of February, and finally to Admiral on 14th November 1863. He was awarded the Royal Geographic Society's Founders Medal in 1854 for his survey work in the Mediterranean. William's astronomical and other work. In 1825 Smyth established a private observatory in Bedford, England, equipped with a 5.9-inch refractor telescope. He used this instrument to observe a variety of deep sky objects over the course of the 1830s, including double stars, star clusters and nebulae. He published his observations in 1844 in the Cycle of Celestial Objects, which earned him the Gold Medal of the Royal Astronomical Society in 1845 and also the presidency of the Society. Having completed his observations, Smyth moved to Cardiff in 1839, where he had designed and then supervised the construction of the Bute Dock, see his report, of which a copy is held at the Institution of Civil Engineers. His observatory was dismantled and the telescope was sold to Dr. John Lee and re-erected in a new observatory of Smyth's own design at Hartwell House nearby. Dr. John Lee, an astronomer, had inherited a house called Hartwell from the unmarried Reverend Sir George Lee. During his ownership, the British Meteorological Society, now the Royal Meteorological Society, was founded in the library in 1850. Reverend Nicholas Lee inherited the house when his brother, Dr. John, died on the 25th of February 1866 at Hartwell. William Henry Smyth, one of Lee's regular scientist guests invited to discuss theories year after year at Hartwell. William had helped with the design of the telescope and cupola that Lee had installed. William described the house and the Hartwell Observatory established there, in the notices of the Manor and Mansion of Hartwell, printed for private circulation, by J.B. Nichols and Son, London, 1851. Many of the illustrations in the book are by Smyth's wife Annarella, and by his son-in-law. Reverend Professor Baden-Powell, Smyth moved to Stone near Aylesbury in 1842, and still had the opportunity to use the telescope, since his residence at St. John's Lodge was not far from its new location, and he performed a large number of additional astronomical observations from 1839 to 1859. Smyth was a numismatist of some standing, being a founding member of the Royal Numismatic Society in 1836. He maintained a lifelong interest in coins and was author of a number of interesting treatises on the subject. An 1861 portrait in oils by E. Eddies of him, with his wife, cataloguing the Duke of Northumberland's numismatic collection, was destroyed during the London Blitz, but prints exist. That catalogue was used when the Duke's collection was sold. Smyth latterly also had a house at No. 3 Cheyne Walk, Chelsea, where he stayed while attending the various learned societies, and where he entertained his like-minded friends, of whom Reverend Professor Baden-Powell was one, and who, on the 10th of March 1846, when he was 50, became Smyth's son-in-law, although only 8 years younger, by marrying Smyth's daughter Henrietta Grace, then aged 22. Admiral William Henry Smyth died on the 9th of September 1865. His obituary in the monthly notices of the Royal Astronomical Society noted, as president of the Astronomical Club, he was always genial, courteous, ever keeping things in happy order, and by his ready wit and flow of humour compelling the maintenance of good fellowship. He used to fill his pockets with new halfpennies to distribute to any children he met in his daily walks. Whatever he did it with his might. Smyth suffered a heart attack at his home near Aylesbury in early September 1865, and at first seemed to recover. On the 8th of September, he showed the planet Jupiter to his young grandson, Arthur Smyth Flower, through a telescope. He died a few hours later, in the early morning of the 9th of September 1865, aged 78. He was buried in the churchyard at Stone near Aylesbury. Admiral William Henry Smyth was an English naval officer, hydrographer, astronomer and numismatist. He is noted for his involvement in the early history of a number of learned societies, for his hydrographic charts, for his astronomical work, and for a wide range of publications and translations. Eliza and Annarella Warrington Smyth was born on the 3rd of April 1788 in Naples, Italy, the daughter of Thomas Warrington, the British consul. She was known as Annarella, a Neapolitan diminutive of Anne. Annarella died on the 9th of January 1873 aged 84 at 25 Inverness Road, Paddington, and is buried with her husband at Stone, Buckinghamshire. Annarella was an accomplished artist and painter, though she never exhibited. Some of her illustrations were incorporated into her husband's published books. She was described in one of her husband's obituary as a lady of great ability and rare accomplishments, who through all his scientific labours of every description was his devoted companion and assistant. Nevill Maskelyne Smyth's father. Warrington Wilkinson Smyth was born at San Giovanni, Naples on the 28th of August 1817. He was the eldest son of Captain, afterwards Admiral, William Henry Smyth and Annarella Warrington Smyth. Warrington was educated at Westminster and Bedford schools and at Trinity College, Cambridge, graduating with a BA in 1839 and MA in 1844. As an undergraduate, he was noted for his love of athletic exercises, and rode a winning race with Oxford on the Thames in 1839. About the same time, he was appointed to one of the travelling bachelorships on the Worts Foundation, and was away from England for more than 4 years. Before leaving Cambridge he had become interested in mineralogy, and during his stay in Germany and Austria he attended geological lectures. He formed friendships with the geologists of those countries, and examined coal fields, salt works, silver mines, and bone caves. Then he visited Sicily and explored Etna, wintered on the Nile, travelled through Palestine and northern Syria as far as the upper valley of the Tigris, and returned to England, bringing with him as results of his wanderings a good knowledge of foreign languages and much practical experience in mining. At the end of 1844 he was appointed mining geologist to the Geological Survey, and in this capacity was engaged on field work in the British Isles. But in 1851, when the School of Mines was organised, he was nominated to the lectureship in mining and mineralogy. Warrington married Anna Maria Antonia Story Maeskline. She was a daughter of Anthony Mervyn Story Maeskline, of Bassetdown House, Cricklade, Wiltshire. They married on the 9th of April 1864 at St. James, Westminster. They had 2 children. Herbert Warrington Smyth, who was born on the 4th of June 1867, and Nevill Maeskline Smyth, who was born on the 14th August 1868. In 1881 his lectureship in mining and mineralogy duties were separated, but he continued teaching the former subject until his death. He was appointed mineral surveyor to the Duchy of Cornwall in 1852, and inspector of Crown Minerals in 1857. He also served on various committees and commissions, and was chairman of the Royal Commission on Accidents in Mines, appointed in 1879, in which capacity he drew up the larger part of an elaborate report, embodying the result of inquiries which had lasted over 7 years. He was knighted in 1887, and also received the foreign orders of SS, Maurice and Lazare, of Jesus Christ, and of S. Jago da Espada. He was elected FGS in 1845, was one of the honorary secretaries from 1856 to 1866, president from 1866 to 1868, and foreign secretary from 1873 till his death. He was also president of the Royal Geological Society of Cornwall from 1871 to 1879, and again from 1883 onwards. He was elected FIS in 1858, and was an honorary member of various foreign societies. He resided for most of the year in London, but spent his summers, during the later part of his life, in a house belonging to him at Marazion, Cornwall. For the greater part of his life he enjoyed excellent health, but during the last 2 or 3 years symptoms of a weakness of the heart appeared, which obliged him to spare himself a little. The end was sudden. He died while sitting in his study, at 5 Inverness Terrace, at work upon his students' examination papers, on the morning of the 19th of June 1890, and was buried at St. Erth, Cornwall. Dame Anna Maria Antonia Maeskline Smyth and Anna died on the 24th of January 1909, at West Cliff, Marazion, Cornwall, England. Probate was granted on the 5th of April 1909 in London. The beneficiary was Herbert Warrington Smyth. The family effects totalled £9,877 14 shillings 10 pence. Anna and Warrington had enjoyed an upper-class lifestyle, as shown in the 1881 English census, which cites many servants alongside relatively few family members. There were noticeably more servants in 1851 and many less in 1901, as the rising wealth of the middle classes made a life of servitude less attractive.